there, this is Carrie from Wrap Your Head Around Silks. Welcome to the Expecting Aerialist podcast. Today I'm speaking to April Moore Skelton. She's an aerial coach and an aerialist for 17 years. She ran the training school and program at Frequent Flyers for a couple years, worked as an aerial teacher trainer for Born to Fly. She's a Pilates instructor and physical therapist assistant by training, and she's a pillar in our industry and is based in Asheville, North Carolina currently. She now has a 4-year-old and just had a baby 9 months ago. And if you recognize her name, it's probably because you're a part of her Facebook group, the Aerial Mama Safety and Support Facebook group. She created it, she administers it, and I am really excited to have her today on the podcast because her story is so interesting, and I think you're going to get a lot out of listening to it. Without further ado, here is my interview with April. You know, Facebook allows people to really connect and find each other. So tell us a little bit about why you decided to start it and that journey and what you've learned, anything like that. We'd love to hear it.
So a couple of years ago, and I already had a child, I just kept seeing the same questions being asked in some of the larger Facebook groups for aerialists, you know, some of the safety-minded groups, the teaching groups. And the questions a lot of times were about what is safe for women to do in pregnancy, with aerial. What does it look like to come back to aerial after you have a baby? And there were plenty of responses to those questions, but I also, just based on my personal experience as a mother and an aerialist, knew that there was more to the discussion than could be had there, and that better discussions could be had if people who had given birth, were trying to conceive, were pregnant, had their own space to talk about those concerns. So I decided to make a Facebook group. And as it turns out, there are lots of people who are mamas. I use mamas inclusively, you know, to mean people in all those categories that I talked about, trying to conceive, thinking about conceiving, dealing with infertility, as well as people who've given birth or who are pregnant. But, you know, because aerialists, many of them are women, then we are also going to see many of them who will one day have children. So,
Yes. And how I only found the Facebook group in the last year, but how long has it been going now?
It's been 2 years now, I think.
Okay.
We've got about 600 members. And I welcome anyone who is in that group that is described to join. We also have some members who have specialized knowledge around pregnancy or aerial. We've got some physios in the group, some birth workers who may not be parents themselves, but have special knowledge to contribute to discussions. And I try to keep the audience to those people. If they're not a parent or trying to become a parent, then hopefully they have some special knowledge to contribute to discussions.
Yeah. And is there anything that you've learned in that process?
You know, I think one thing that has become apparent for me, and I really try to subscribe to this in the group, is that you just really don't know how any one person's journey to pregnancy, giving birth, postpartum. There's not any one way of predicting how that's going to unfold, and there's so many different paths that a person could go on. And even between pregnancies in the same person, you could have a lot of variety. So I think it's helpful to see that there's a really wide range of experiences. I do think it's helpful to see other people saying, oh yeah, I also have experienced that, because I do think that some of the common issues that come up are things that aren't talked about, that people feel an amount of shame or embarrassment around. And so it's really nice to see other people, especially people that you regard as strong, capable, inspiring, also they may be struggling with some of the same challenges that you are. So I think that has been one of the nicest things about the group, just to say, oh yeah, okay, these things are also experienced by other people, and I can see other people at different points on their journeys overcoming them, finding solutions for them, finding resources to tackle these problems.
So April, it does feel like that comes through on there. What I've learned so much since I've had my baby is that how much I hate unsolicited advice.
Oh my God, yes.
It's the worst, right? It's like literally the worst thing. And what kills me the most is when my friends who are moms dish it out the most.
Yes. 100% yes.
I feel like they're the ones who should be judging the least out of everyone.
Oh yeah. This was what a huge pet peeve of mine before I even had my first kid. Just everyone telling you what to expect. Here's what's going to happen next, and I was like, you don't know. I mean, generally, you know what's going to happen next, but like,
right.
You don't know. It might not go that way for me.
Exactly. And it's a lot of projection. It's like wherever they had trouble, they're like, you're going to have trouble when. And I'm like, are you sure?
Yeah. I really enjoyed, I feel like you and Sarah talked about that or touched on that in the episode with Sarah Romanowski, about people talking about like, oh, you're never going to sleep again. You're never going to sleep again. And you're like, could you maybe like hype me up? Like, tell me something good that's going to happen.
Yeah, I know. At least Aerial Mamas, which is a niche of a niche. We should just have like a solidarity pact to not do that to each other.
Yeah.
I mean,
I try really hard in the group to monitor the conversations. And I think that overall the members have done a great job.
Yeah, I agree.
Of saying, here's how it was for me, rather than saying, here's how it's going to be for you, and I think that that's been the general tone. Of course, as a group grows, there's probably going to be more of that sort of like tone monitoring that, you have to watch for. But so far, I feel like it's been pretty supportive and I subscribe to the philosophy of there are multiple truths, like what works great for you, if that worked great for you, that's great. And like, if I have a totally different approach that worked great for me, that's also great.
So I love that. Yeah. So you have a really interesting story. You have 2 little ones, right?
I do. Yeah.
And I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say I have a 4-year-old and a 9-month-old.
9 months. I didn't realize that you were only 9 months out. Okay. So full pandemic 9 months.
Baby. Oh yeah. Yeah.
So when was the birthday? When did you give birth?
June 16th last year. So like
June 16th.
High anxiety period for sure. There was a lot of questions.
God. So like what was going through your head around this time last year, March, mid-March when everything shut down and you were in your second trimester?
Yeah, I was nearing the end of my second trimester. Uh, my son, my 4-year-old was in preschool, and his preschool shut down. And uh, I mean, it was just every day like, oh my God, I hope my husband gets to be in the delivery room with me. I hope, oh, I had a doula hired, and they weren't
Oh,
allowing doulas. So I had to let my doula go, and like didn't have one for my birth. Um,
man.
but I mean, my baby's here. It all worked out. Everything was fine. um, I mean, I wish, of course, this time last year we had no idea. It was like, oh my God, don't touch the grocery bag. It's going to
Yeah,
jump onto
yeah,
you.
yeah.
Um, so now that the baby's here, and of course, like we're on the precipice of like emerging from this. So everything feels much more hopeful and easy. But
Yeah, I feel like that feeling of hope is really come alive in the last maybe 2 weeks, at least for where I live, which is LA.
yeah,
Because we had a couple bad, really bad, rough spots there.
woof,
Being such a
yes.
big cities, being in such a big city. So tell me. Let's start at the beginning. Tell me your story prenatal. Up to you how you want to tell it. I'm so excited to hear.
Sure, yeah. So, when I got pregnant with my first child, my son, um, well, I have two sons. Uh, I was living in Boulder, Colorado, and I was working as education director at Frequent Flyers Aerial Dance in Boulder. Um, and Frequent Flyers hosts the Aerial Dance Festival every year, and that's a really long running festival. It's been going on for over 20 years now, and it's a beast of a festival. It's 2 weeks long, and faculty teaches 2 weeks in a row, and in the middle of that, there's this big performance. So it's just like a gauntlet. Sarah did it a few years ago, and I'm sure she would also say, I mean, she's well conditioned to endurance runs, but I'm sure she would also say it's pretty hectic. Um, and I got pregnant uh, the summer before I taught at my first aerial dance festival. And so I had, honestly, with my first pregnancy, I felt pretty much unchanged in my first trimester. And I was nearing the end of my first trimester at the end of the festival, and I hadn't told anyone I was pregnant. So I performed as normal. I taught my classes, although I do remember being extremely tired, like more
Oh, I
tired
can't
than,
I can't imagine. So you weren't necessarily having morning sickness. You were just like, growing a human, so
yeah.
totally exhausted.
Luckily, during that pregnancy, I did not have bad morning sickness. I was just really fatigued. One day, actually, during the festival, I walked in a classroom, and I had administrative tasks during the festival as well. And I took roll for the people in the classroom. And then I walked out of the classroom and sat down in the hallway just to like have a little rest. And I woke up on the floor like 90 minutes later.
Wait, did you fall?
No, I think I was like, oh, I'll just lay down kind of on my side here and maybe like look at my phone or check some emails. And I just like conked out.
Conked out.
Yeah. I woke up when people
Yeah.
were coming out of the studio later, and I was like, oh, here I am on the floor. um, but yeah, by the end of I think I told everybody at work on the last day of the festival. And some people were like, we were beginning to think because you're showing like a little bit in a leotard, you know? Um,
Wow, you're so like I won't wear a leotard even for any reason.
well,
I'm,
well, it was
I'm
for
so lazy
my
with it.
performance, not for teaching.
Oh,
I never
got it,
wear a
got it, got
leotard.
it.
No, it was my costume for performance. And, it had already been like, I had my costume custom made. So it had already been made, and it's like, well, this is what I'm wearing. Um, but that was up until end of my first trimester. I was feeling really good. I was probably the strongest I've been in my life. Um, and I fully expected to be doing aerial through my pregnancy, which I did. But as I entered my second trimester, I really started to have a lot of problems with SI joint pain and pubic symphysis pain. And usually that is, if that problem happens for people in pregnancy, it does emerge in the second trimester. And it's usually,
Can you define that for our listeners who don't know what that is?
yeah. So SI joint pain would be pain around the joints where your sacrum sits in your pelvis. So on the back of your pelvis, like those two kind of bony dimples, those are where your SI joints are located. And then pubic symphysis would be the joint on the front half of your pelvis, down where your pubic bone is. And that comes together, the right and left halves of your pelvis. And there's a disc there, actually, similar to the discs in your back. And of course, in pregnancy, your pelvis is undergoing a ton of change, and it's like loosening and getting ready to hold a baby, give birth to a baby. But apparently, my body either just loves to make relaxin, which is the hormone that softens your ligamentous tissue, or I probably already could be called hypermobile in some of my joints. So those joints might have already been a little loosey-goosey to begin with, but I started having a lot of pain with those, and I kept teaching, kept training. Aerial definitely exacerbated it for me. Any kind of like torque on my pelvis, which is basically everything, just made it so much more painful. And so a lot of people who have that sort of pain in pregnancy will wear what's called an SI belt, which is just like a stretchy belt that you fasten with Velcro, basically like squeezing the halves of your pelvis together. And that compression can help the joints to not move around as much. And that excess movement is really where a lot of the pain comes from. So I was wearing, an SI belt most of the time. I taught up until about 30 weeks, I think, in my first
Wow, that's
pregnancy.
wonderful. Were you demoing too?
I was demoing, and
Okay.
toward the end of that, I would say that it was I demoed too long. I should have cut it off earlier because of the amount of pain I was having.
So
Um,
let me ask you. Let me ask you about your pelvis. So, was it the type of thing? Oh, my child looks like she's going to launch off this couch. Don't go. I'm just like, oh my god. Uh, so, is it the type of thing where you felt like you needed to see a chiropractor? And did you ever see a chiropractor? Like, did you ever get your bones put back, and do they
mm.
just move right away afterwards? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, so good question. I did start seeing a pelvic PT during my pregnancy because of these issues. And definitely there's like a lot that can be done in terms of adjustments or like muscular and soft tissue release, those things can definitely help. But honestly, if you're prone to that kind of issue and you just keep putting yourself in positions that put a ton of like force and torsion across the pelvis, you're probably just going to keep having those problems. But the good news about it, at least for me, was that as soon as I delivered, those problems basically went away. So
Okay.
it's
Okay.
really like hormone dependent. And as soon as like your baby is out and your hormones, you go through that huge hormone shift, postpartum. That problem resolved itself, I would say, within at least like a couple weeks. It definitely wasn't something that I was thinking about postpartum. Let's just say that.
That's great. When I was like 15 weeks, I had like crazy SI joint pain out of nowhere. It's almost like an event happened, but I'm not sure what the event was. But my body is completely opposite of yours. My fascia is just like my whole life, just so tight. Even strength building, I'll build a little strength and then just, I'll do a crazy hard workout and then I'll just tighten up. I won't necessarily build a lot of muscle, which has been my aerial long problem. And so I went to my chiro. He said, you are out of alignment. He put me back and then I never went back out.
Wow.
So I think that speaks a lot to those genetics maybe, because you were just, it had space to shift around.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And I will say, I mean, it wasn't a complete surprise that I had those problems because I had SI joint pain years before I ever got pregnant. That was something that had happened from time to time for years. So I think that probably for the people that have to experience that in their pregnancy, they might have an inkling before they get pregnant that might happen because they already have a pelvis that's a little bit like fussy,
Yeah. Do you have any advice for women who are going through that same pain?
I would say definitely get an SI belt early, get a pelvic PT on your team like early. And I mean, honestly, like stop doing things that make the pain worse, I thought, well, I mean, I'll tell you that I got a lot stronger between my first pregnancy and my second pregnancy. And I thought I might not have the issue in my second pregnancy because I felt really strong and connected, but I had it again. So,
oh man,
I know some people I think are just predisposed to it. And even people who don't do aerial, my friends would be like, I am so surprised. You're so strong and fit. Like, why are you in so much pain? And I was like, I don't know. It just happens to some people.
Did you ever have problems with your shoulders and stuff when it comes to them being loose? Is it all in your body?
Not
Do you
my
have it
shoulders.
everywhere?
No, I think my pelvis is just really jumbly. My shoulders, not so much. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I've never had like a significant shoulder injury.
Congratulations for that. That's great. So tell me, so for both your births, did you have vaginal? Did you have C-section? Did you have 2 C-sections? How did it go down?
Well, I have kind of an unusual progression because I did have a vaginal birth with my first child. So I had a nurse midwife, for my first birth. And obviously, when you work with a nurse midwife or a midwife, they tend to be really focused on getting you a vaginal birth because they are not surgeons. So I did give birth in a hospital, and I went into labor spontaneously. Got to the hospital, dilated. When it was time to push, the baby just was not descending. I pushed for 4 hours.
Oh man.
Yeah, just awful. And finally, so I think the reason the baby was not descending is because my son was what they call occiput posterior, or like sunny side up. So his face was facing my belly button. And that's just kind of a difficult position for the baby to deliver from. So what ended up happening with my first birth is that I'd been pushing so long and I was really like out of steam. And the midwife said we could do vacuum assist. And
what is that?
Well, I'm going to tell you.
Oh my God, I learned something new every guest. Oh my God.
So
tell all, please.
Because his head wasn't like coming down into the birth canal, they have to go get the OB. This is something only an OB can do. They take basically a suction cup, like a big plunger, and they put it on the baby's head and they pull really hard to pull the baby down into the birth canal. So it's like in previous generations, it was much more common to use forceps to do that sort of assist. Now it's much more common, if that sort of thing is indicated, to use vacuum assist. But what I hadn't done, Carrie, is I hadn't done any research. I was basically like you. I was like, what is vacuum assist?
Mm-hmm.
And she was like, well, like, we can get the baby out. It was either like vacuum assist or go to C-section. And in that moment, I was like, okay, well, let's do it. And so they used the vacuum. My baby came down into the birth canal. I pushed. They delivered my baby. He was healthy and fine, and he's a wonderful kid. But if I had known that vacuum assist is really highly correlated with pelvic floor dysfunction and disorders, I don't think I would have chosen vacuum assist in
Oh.
that moment. Because postpartum, I had a really, really difficult time with urinary incontinence. And my pelvic floor function was shot. It was absolutely shot. And it
And
was,
what is the why? What is the why there? Why is that? Is there
um,
a why?
why does vacuum assist cause that to happen? I think it's
Yeah.
because I I think the suction, for one thing, really can like damage and stretch and distort the pelvic floor musculature. And probably the speed at which the baby descends into the birth canal, instead of like descending at a natural rate of speed and the muscles being allowed to kind of naturally acclimate to that, the baby's pulled really fast into the birth canal. I mean, I'm not an expert in this. That's my understanding. So I may be not 100% correct about why it does so much damage. But it is, I I would not choose that again.
And
Um,
so how long between them doing that technique on you and the baby coming out?
uh, Minutes, like 2 minutes.
Really? So if the baby hadn't been at that wrong angle with the cervical spine, you would have had a completely different birth.
Probably so. Yeah, probably
Okay. All
so.
right. Oh my goodness. And then I can imagine they're putting a big like plunger in you. At this point, do you have meds or did you do without?
Oh, I had meds at that point. Yeah.
Okay, so it was just pressure, it wasn't pain.
Yeah. Um,
Okay.
yeah, I had meds at that point, so that was helpful. But, I was so elated and over the moon to have my son and to like be a mom, and it was wonderful giving birth to him in many ways. But I think that initially I just had so much confusion about like what was normal, what to expect in my postpartum recovery. Because I mean, you do hear like, oh yeah, after you have a baby, you'll pee when you sneeze, or whatever. Or that happens for a lot of women. For me, when I was initially postpartum, I'm talking in those first weeks postpartum, I would get the urge to pee, and before I even got to the bathroom, I would empty my entire bladder into a pad.
Really? So
There was
you like had
zero
no
stop.
muscle.
There was
Wow.
none. There was nothing. It was devastating. I was
Oh my
so
God.
I didn't know what to do. And
Right. And you didn't know how long it was going to last because
yeah,
how would you know?
right. And
Whoa.
my mom had had a really traumatic first birth, which was me. She had a really traumatic first birth, and she had a lot of incontinence. So to her, like, I was asking her because she was the only person I really trusted or like felt safe enough to open up to and say like, I'm peeing like a lot. Is this normal? Like, when does this stop? And I didn't have anybody that I felt like I could ask. I mean, I would tell people, I'd be like, I'm having a lot of problems with incontinence. And people would be like, yeah. Um, but until I started going back to my physical therapist, I didn't really, I didn't really know what to do or like how bad it was and so there was a lot of fear just because there was a lot of unknowns. Like, how long is this going to last? Will I always be
Yeah.
like this? Um, so my son was born in March, and I went back to work in uh like the first day of June. He was born March 14th, and I went back to work the first day of June. So I was like 10 or 11 weeks postpartum, I think. And I just like jumped back into training and teaching. And I was getting ready for another festival at the end of the summer. And I was like wearing a huge pad all the time to do all of my aerial training, you know,
Oh my
because
God, I'm so sorry. This is terrible. This is a terrible story.
you might want to put a trigger warning. I don't know.
No, I think that this is going to be so great because there's women out there dealing with this. And the fact that I'm like, we're both in this space where we're talking about a lot of like baby things and mom things, and the fact that I've never heard of that, not the incontinence part, but the first
Yeah, the
part.
vacuum assist. Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah. Here's okay. I got to go back and ask you questions. I'm so
Okay.
interested right now. So, is it a feeling of disconnection? Is it like when your nerves aren't there, like, the same feeling people have when their scar tissue is, what's the word I'm looking for? Like numb? Like, is it a feeling of disconnection, or is it like you're using your muscles to stop peeing, but they're just not working? Like, can you describe that?
Um, I would say there's definitely a lot of disconnection. Yes. Like I mean, I think anyone who has given birth probably experiences disconnection to some extent, whether it's like the abdominals, something. And yeah, it's like, oh, I need to stop peeing. Hmm, that's not happening. But as the weeks went on, it's like, okay, I need to stop peeing. And I could feel myself trying, but my contraction was just like so not enough to make it happen. It was like the most
Okay.
baby contraction. Um, so over, yeah, I think both things were happening. It was like the message wasn't getting there enough, and also the muscles I felt like were just so weak. Like there wasn't very much at all that was happening in terms of my muscle contraction. Um,
And then your pelvic floor PT, I'm assuming, how did you, like, what was the strategy?
right. So, if people haven't, I would love to. I'm going to talk a little bit about pelvic PT because it's been great for me, especially in together with Pilates. But yeah, so with that rehab journey, what my pelvic PT did was she used a lot of biofeedback. So, biofeedback is where they take an electrode and they place it on the outside of the body, but like kind of right beside the vaginal opening, and it reads muscular electrical impulses. And so when you are contracting, there's a screen and there's a readout, just kind of like we're seeing our sound readouts on this recording right now. And the louder you are, the bigger the line. Well, when the more you contract your muscle, the higher the line goes. So you're getting a visual to track how well you're able to contract. And what is interesting, and this is very common for a lot of people with pelvic floor dysfunction, is that sometimes it's both that the contractions are not strong enough, or maybe you don't have enough endurance. You can contract a little bit, but you can't hold it. Um, but sometimes a, a parallel issue is that you're always holding the muscle to some extent. Like it's never, ever fully relaxing. And you can imagine if your bicep never fully relaxed, you would never be able to fully contract it, you know?
Yeah, yeah. You would be tight and weak.
Exactly. It's the tight and weak
Yeah.
coupling that you see so much in injuries. And so that was something that was revelatory and has been revelatory with, I've worked with 2 different pelvic PTs now, is just the amount of tone that you're holding all the time. Because I think when you have that sort of traumatic injury to the area, the muscles do contract because they're trying so hard to help. You know,
Mm,
they do contract, and then you get in this pattern of being like, oh my God, I need to protect this. I need to hold it all the time. I'm just going to hold it all the time and hope that nothing happens. And
right.
so,
Oh,
yeah, so getting to a PT who could not only do biofeedback with me, but a really skilled PT who could do internal release work has been tremendous. It's phenomenal how many trigger points were in my
yeah,
pelvic
yeah.
floor that, are just really difficult to access on your own, although they can be done. And my PT has taught me how to do that with a release wand, which is basically just like a plastic
Yeah. I've got one of
stick.
those because
Yeah.
I was having postpartum pain with sex, and I got checked out by April Douglas, who's the pelvic floor PT that I'll have on here. And I was definitely not being able to relax.
Yeah.
I was too tight. And it's so interesting because the damn internet's like, do Kegels. Well, you should check on which side of the spectrum you're on, right? Because
Right.
if I had done crazy amounts of Kegels, I would have really put myself in a bad position
Yeah.
because I was already there. I was already too tight and weak. So, yeah, it's amazing. And then, the education around it is spotty depending on what community you're in.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Even the amount of knowledge that OBs have about pelvic floor rehabilitation is so disappointing to me. I had 2 different OB practices for my 2 different births because we lived in different places. But, I've had people at both of those practices give information that I just know is not great advice or information for the pregnant or postpartum body. And I think that's disappointing, and it's, uh, in my opinion, somewhat representative of a lot of like typical medicine, um, which is
Yeah.
kind of that like women's issues don't get as much attention. There may not be as much training. I'm a physical therapist assistant by training, and I will say that in my own education, I was so disappointed and also infuriated about how little information was given about the pelvic floor and the pelvis in
Yeah.
general. It
Yeah.
was pretty much
Yeah.
like, okay, everybody, this is the pelvic floor. If you want to know more, specialize after you graduate. And it was like, are you kidding
Yeah.
me?
Yeah. All of my certifications too is like literally a paragraph or a page
Yeah.
on this stuff. Yes, my love. You want to hear it? Come up on the couch. Yeah, I'm gonna talk to my friend who's an OB soon for the podcast. And what I kind of want to talk to her about is the real having realistic expectations for what the scope of the medical OB really is, because I think that's part of it. I think
Yes.
that people, okay, I got pregnant, I know nothing about it, I have my one resource, my doctor, and I'm
Mhm.
relying on that doctor for all the information. And the fact is that pretty much her job is just to get the baby out safely.
Yes. Yes. That is,
And I don't know if women understand that. And I didn't understand that before.
I think that's such a great point, but I also think that it's an illusion that is perpetuated by the fact that a lot of women might not even have a primary care doctor. You know what I mean? They're like,
Yeah.
"Oh, I
Yeah.
just go to my OB for my yearly and like, that's fine.
Yeah.
They check my blood pressure, or whatever."
Yeah. Yeah.
Um You're totally right. I mean, the scope of an OB's practice is not to rehabilitate the pelvic floor, but I do wish there were, and I think that there are lots of great OBs who have wonderful and current knowledge about like best practices and will refer out, and go like, you know what? Sounds like you're having some problems that need physical therapy. So here's a referral. But I do think there are some pieces of misinformation that, are perpetuated. And that takes time. But
yeah, and then also, even if our expectations should be lower of those doctors, I do see a difference between my doctors, not necessarily my OB, but all of my doctors. The ones that are a little in the younger generation, they just do their homework. I don't know. Sometimes,
yeah,
you know what? I can't even generalize like that, because there might be doctors out there who've been in the game for a long time and are just really learning all the time, but some aren't. So I guess that's where you find the right doctor for you. But can you please tell us, I mean, we're waiting with bated breath to hear about your peeing, I think. So
yeah.
Can you please talk about how it was resolved, if it was resolved, and then how your pelvic floor went into your second pregnancy and then postpartum as well?
Yeah. So that problem persisted for quite a while, although each month it got a little better, a little better, a little better. But I'm telling you that even at like probably nearly a year postpartum, it was still a lingering issue for me sometimes. For instance, I can recall one day I was teaching a silks class, and I was teaching like hands-free wheel down, hands-free windmill.
Oh goodness, you don't even have to end the story. I can feel it coming, but keep on going.
Yeah. And so I was demoing it, and like things had improved enough that I didn't expect this. I wasn't wearing a pad, and like the squeezing and like the hands free, and it was just like I just peed like a lot. Enough that I was wearing gray pants in class.
Oh, the worst.
I know. I came down. I had to say to my students, I said, you guys, I just peed. I'm postpartum. I'm going to have to go to the bathroom and change. I had to go to the merch rack.
It's amazing.
Get a pair of pants. Go in the bathroom. I went in the bathroom. I went in the stall, and I was like, I want to walk out the back door and never go back in the classroom. Like, this is the worst moment. But I walked back in the classroom, and you know what one of my students said to me? She said, "You're strong and amazing, and we accept you just as you are." And I was like,
that's awesome.
Oh my God, I'm in the right place right now. But yeah, so the problem lingered, and it would kind of pop up like when I didn't expect it. And what really, honestly, made the biggest change, so between my first and second pregnancies, we moved from Colorado to North Carolina, and I wasn't going to pelvic PT anymore, but I was doing a lot of Pilates, and Pilates at a studio with an owner who's really expert in postpartum. And so just my very, very regular and very, very well taught Pilates practice made the biggest difference for me. And finally, I would say probably like 2 years postpartum, I was like, this feels like my body. This feels like the body that I remember having. And probably if it hadn't been for how great my Pilates practice was and how much it helped me to rehab, I don't think I would have tried to get pregnant a second time.
Okay, because it was just such a thing.
Yeah, it's
a big deal.
It was just like, up until that point, I was like, my body is changed, and I don't know if I'm ever going to have it back, and this is too hard. And like, in addition to the incontinence, I was having tons of back pain. Like, my back hurt all the time, which it never did before I had a baby.
Really? Man.
I know.
I'm so sorry.
It was a rough year or two. you know? Um,
Yeah.
but I did finally get back to a place where I felt really strong. I felt as strong as I had been before I had my first child. And we did get pregnant again. And so uh, I was like, this time is going to be different because I'm practicing Pilates, I'm teaching a ton of Pilates, I'm doing all this like foundational work. I'm working with a pelvic physical therapist again just to make sure like everything is so solid. But I still did have some trepidation about giving birth vaginally again. And I talked to my OB about that. I was like, I don't know if I want to have another vaginal birth. Like, that was rough. And like, and she was like, yeah, I understand. She's like, but C-sections aren't really indicated unless there's a problem.
Oh,
And
that's interesting.
well,
I didn't know that.
I think different OBs have different perspectives.
Right,
And
right. Because most of
obviously,
my friends can like opt for one and the OB doesn't
yeah,
argue.
I think different practices have different approaches. And I live in a town, Asheville, North Carolina, that I would say is pretty like crunchy.
Oh,
Um,
okay. Okay.
and I think in general, people here are very focused on like there's a large like group of people who are like natural. And honestly, all birth is natural. Birth out of your belly is natural. Birth out of your vagina is natural. Birth is natural. That's my perspective. But there's a big community here that's like, unmedicated, like at home birth,
Got it.
water
Got it.
birth
Got it.
kind of thing.
Right. Right.
So, I mean, but all things considered, I was trying for a vaginal. And honestly, I kind of expected that with my second kid, um, he would just slip out, based on what I'd heard from other people and my experience the first time. I was like, well, the first time was really hard, but the second time it'll just be like, all right, let's do this. Here he comes. And I did labor pretty quickly. Like I went into labor and we went to the hospital, and within a couple hours, I was like fully dilated, and it surprised me because I called for meds. I was like, I need some meds. Like these contractions are just coming one after another, and they were like, okay, let's check you, and they were like, you're fully dilated, and I was like, oh, okay, that's a second birth for you. um,
Mm.
and at that
So
moment, I
too
was
late for the epidural type of thing, or can they always
no,
give it to
they
you?
had already placed it, but they hadn't turned it on. So
Got it. Okay.
yeah. Um, And so at that moment, I was like, oh my God, it's time to push. I'm going to meet my baby really soon. And then we started pushing, and the OB said, your baby is occiput posterior. Um, again.
Again. Oh, geez.
Yeah. Um, and she tried to turn him manually. I pushed in different positions. I pushed, and he just wasn't descending. And I was like, after a couple hours, I was like, I do not like the very last thing I want is another like assisted vaginal birth. So let's do a C-section. And I gave birth to my son via C-section, my second son, in June. And it was wonderful, Carrie. It was great.
I love it.
Yeah. I honestly, it was kind of the birth that I feel like I needed. Obviously, a lot of people have a lot of pain after C-section. I think that, I mean, I did have, certainly, like, I had pain those first couple days in the hospital when you're like trying to get off the bed, and it's like, oh my God, it feels like I'm being cut open with a lightsaber. Um, I mean, those are bad, but I would say by like day 4 or 5, I was taking just Tylenol, and I was okay. A week out from giving birth, I did a Zoom session with my Pilates mentor. And
Oh, wow.
I'm not saying that I was doing like Pilates, but she, she's expert in like postpartum. We were just doing like subtle movement and stuff. But I was feeling good enough to like move around a little bit and be like, okay, here's, can I get in touch with my breath at all? Can I like feel my abs, or like how much disconnection do I feel, kind of thing. So, honestly, it was my recovery from C-section was very easy. Yeah,
Well,
I
and
know.
you're comparing it to all the things that you just experienced, which were not things that people usually talk about, or that's very common. Like not most women don't have your story.
Yes, yes, that's true. I mean, in comparison to what I would personally describe as a somewhat traumatic vaginal birth, my C-section was easy, and I was in the end like really happy that I was able to give birth via C-section.
Wow, I am too. Hearing your story. Oh my goodness. And then how was it? So my experience was very similar to that. Like I had a kind of a rough week. But again, compared to me, because I had gone through putting my leg back together years before. So compared to
Hmm.
that, it was like, oh, this isn't bad.
Yeah.
And then for me, about 2.5 months after the baby was born, I went into the studio for the first time. I was doing Pilates already because I have a reformer at my house. And even if I didn't, the mat's just fine.
Hmm.
But when I went in the first time, my hip key was non existent. I did not have an inversion in the air. What was your experience when you went back to the air?
Yeah. So interestingly, I would say like because I practiced much later into my first pregnancy, when I went back, even though my pelvis was so damaged, my upper body strength was really like there.
Still there. Okay.
Yeah. And honestly, my ab strength, it didn't take too terribly long to get it back. But then with this pregnancy, I stopped much earlier. I stopped because I had had so much pain in my first pregnancy, and I thought stopping would maybe help. And I'm sure it did, although I still had pubic symphysis dysfunction in my second pregnancy. But I had been out of the air a lot longer. I probably stopped teaching and practicing, I would say around like 14 or 15 weeks, maybe like 14 weeks. Um, so yeah, getting back in the air this time, it was a lot. The first time I went to get back on the silks, I was like, "Oh, I've got nothing." Like I couldn't hold my knees up at like 90 degrees, It was like, "Oh, this is all hip
Mm-hmm.
flexors, zero abs." And that was
Mm-hmm.
probably
Okay.
like, yeah, around 3 months postpartum. I took my time, I took it easy. And it's the pandemic, so it's like, well, I mean, there's
Right.
no
Right.
pressure. I do have my own rig here at the house, but now I have 2 kids, and it's just, and I have like no childcare because now we're home.
Right.
And I've
Right.
just
And
got
it's
both
a
of my kids.
pandemic.
Yeah. So, finding the time is a little bit harder. And I was in no rush. But yeah, I mean, when I first got back in the air, I was like, I got nothing here. My pull-up's gone. I can't hold my knees up. But I I took the pressure off myself because I mean, there's no job pressure right now. So I
This is
just
true.
I just was like, it's okay. I'm just gonna focus on other stuff right now and just I like increase the amount of Pilates I'm doing, increase the amount of conditioning I'm doing, like I do my cardio and like I do my fundamental exercises. I get in there with my assist band and I work on my pull up, like and it's like I didn't even really try, but um now so my son is 9 months, and now when I get on my trapeze, like, it's like, oh yeah, things are like co- coming back. Now, I haven't been training very hard. Um, so I'm definitely not in like tip top shape, but I can get on my trapeze now and be like, yeah, I can invert. Like this doesn't feel like an impossibility, you know, like
You
it
know,
did at 3 months.
right. And now you're at 9 months. My bean's at 16 months, but the pandemic happened in the middle. So I had like 2.5 months on, and then
Hmm.
March of last year happened. So I don't have a rig at home. We're renting. We don't have it. Long story. So I had to take another 2.5 months off, and then Womack and Bowman opened up in June of last year, and I kind of had to start again because my body
Hmm.
hadn't held on to the strength, that initial strength that I was trying to build.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm formulating a theory right now. Okay, so having conversations with a lot of my students who are having babies and coming back to the practice, and then also having a lot of conversations with teachers and professionals who are doing the same. I am starting to find, April, you're here for this genesis of this theory. My theory is that the
Lay it on
ones who
me.
do it professional have so much less pressure on themselves.
Mm.
That is what I am experiencing from all of the women that I'm talking to who do this as a profession. There's so much less self pressure. I wonder why that is.
I have two potential guesses.
Okay, let's figure it out. Possibly.
Okay, so one potential guess is maybe they've been doing it longer, and so they know that there are ebbs and flows. And like sometimes there's a season or a year where, like you're just not doing as much work, or they know people who are spread over the decades who are still working. Or maybe it's because people who are professional have had more injuries and had to work back from more injuries. And they're like, I can do this. And also, maybe I was too hard on myself when I had an injury, which I have to say, there needs to be more psychology around sports injuries
Mm-hmm. Yep.
because I don't know a single person who can get injured, even like, oh, I pulled my hamstring, and you're just in a doom spiral immediately. It's like I think that there needs to be a lot more uh, psychology around that. I wish that people were in generally better about it. But once you've been through coming back from something, I think that you know that you can come back. I don't know. What's your theory?
Well, I think that you might be right for the first part. That might be a part of it where, like, if you're a professional or you're an instructor, there's a good chance you've been doing it longer than your students. So when they go through their first moment where they are put out for some reason for an injury or a pregnancy, it feels so big to them. I mean, I don't know about you, but I've definitely talked to a lot of students who, I mean, the tears that I've seen shed when there's an injury and they
Hmm.
just lose some of their strength. I mean, the emotional heaviness, not to me, I don't feel it emotionally heavy, but to them. And what I'm hearing from, I will do a episode or two where I'm going to invite my students who've had babies and like get their perspectives, just kind of like do
Hmm.
a, 5 women. What was your perspective as a hobbyist? But yeah, my hobbyists are definitely way harder on themselves. They're way worried about the strength they're going to lose. They're way worried about the flexibility they're going to lose.
Hmm.
And I'm really interested in continuing this deep dive to find out what's going on there, because I agree. Like all the professionals I know who have had, again, I'm talking about a group of women who are in their 40s, if not almost there. And by now, most of us have either dealt with a big injury
Yeah.
or some type of disappointment for something else around our aerial practice.
Yeah. I
So
think
I'm just, wondering about that.
I think I've also, like, for me, I think I've also taught enough students that I've seen have to take a break for one reason or another. And, that may have been like very upsetting to them, or maybe it wasn't. And seeing them come back and go, like, okay, if for instance, I know one woman who she had a kid and, just because of life circumstances, took a break for like 5 years. And then she came back and, like stronger than ever. She's in her 40s. I mean, she's like a very solid aerialist. My first trapeze partner, like 17 years ago, we were partners and worked duo together. And then she got a new career, moved to the West Coast, and she just didn't really find like her community and she was focused on her other career. She took a break for like 10 years, Carrie. And then
wow. And then came back to it.
And then decided recently she's really settled where she is and she's like, I want to get back into it, and like found a gym to hang her trapeze, and like she's just like right back up there. And I'm like, okay.
That's really inspiring. I love that you told that story. I really hope that the listeners, if they're feeling like, oh, I just took the pandemic year off, maybe I'm not going to go back. Even if you want to go back, go back. I think so. I feel like
the pandemic year is
so
not
hard on themselves.
You, right? Like the pandemic year is not going to take us out.
No. It doesn't need to. And I have a lot of students who are feeling that. Like I joke around when they come back for their first class in this pandemic, and it's like I call it they're born again.
Mm-hmm.
Born again. That's what I call it. And there's just so much. I don't know if it's so much fear, but like the conversation's always the same. They're like, I don't know, how's this gonna feel? I'm gonna feel embarrassed. I'm like, well, if you're gonna feel embarrassed because you think other people are thinking something that they're not.
Yeah.
Don't worry about that. No one's judging you here. Everyone is worried about themselves, probably.
Oh, yeah.
All my students are concerned about their own strength and what they can remember. And like, they don't remember any of the raps. And, so, I feel like this athlete brain really gets people, it really puts a lot of pressure on some people. And I feel like people should give themselves a break,
I totally agree.
Life can be hard.
Life can be hard. And I said to myself when I got pregnant with my second, I'm 37. I'll be 38 in May. I said, you know what? I'm going to have another baby. And like, my goal is just like to be stronger by 40. Like, that's it. I'm going to be stronger by 40. So I'm giving myself a very generous timeline to do it. And I feel totally confident in that.
Yeah. And then also I think that maybe what students, even if I've told them, they don't realize, students / hobbyists / anybody who does this for fun, that when you're on a professional job, we are not doing all the crazy shit you see on Instagram. I'm doing a split and I'm waiting for them to clap.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to do a double star at the end. It's like I'm not doing this crazy, hard, complex stuff that everybody's so excited to learn, on Instagram. It's just, it doesn't translate.
Yeah, you can't. Well, I mean, for one, like that's a really poor use of. It's just a poor use of resources to like, burn your most intense stuff for gigs.
Yeah. So it's kind of, I don't know. I feel like if we could get like the perspective to come back to a normal place, then, it will help people come down a little bit. But so for you, now that you're kind of past all this, and what are you looking forward to in your practice?
I'm looking forward to getting vaccinated.
There you go.
Yeah. And, getting back in the studio, I mean, I've got my rig here, but I was talking to my therapist recently, and let's hear it for therapy. Okay.
Yes.
I was talking to my therapist and, just kind of going over some of the stresses and strains of the pandemic, which we all are experiencing. And I was talking about how I just have so little time away from my kids. And this was kind of a new therapist and that I was talking to. And she said,
you're talking about a talk therapist, not a physical therapist.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah. And she said, well, if the pandemic wasn't a thing and you were, and you had childcare and you were like working as normal, like what would you be doing if you had a couple hours to yourself? And I said, well, what I would be doing is I would be in the studio just like moving for myself, you know?
Yeah.
Um, that's what I would be doing. And that's what I would do if I had a couple hours during the day and there weren't classes booked, and um, I wasn't doing other like training or class planning or whatever. I just like slip in the studio and move for me. And that's something that's been missing, but that I feel like is going to be possible soon. So
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
I'm really, really excited about that. Uh, that's what I'm looking forward to. Um, I I also I've been interested in people creating perform I mean, there've been a lot of like Zoom performances and stuff, and I think that we can all agree that Zoom is not like the best format for a performance.
Yeah. Yeah. We can all agree that for sure.
But last year I got the chance to, well, I've participated in this event a couple times, and I'm going to give it a plug because people should do it if they have a chance. I've participated in the event a couple times, and last year I got to be a judge for it. It's called Inanimate Dance, and it's the 48-hour inanimate dance project. And what it is it's for apparatus-based dance. So that's basically like aerial, pole, sear wheel, anything that'll like bear your weight. Um, and you have 48 hours on a particular weekend, and it's coming up in April this year to create like a dance film on your apparatus. And and last year, because things were shut down, people were really creative and like went out and like climbed trees or like danced on a park bench or whatever. But seeing people start to explore different forms and combine like film with aerial, I think that's really fun. And I was really happy to get to judge that last year. The first competition they had, me and my aerial mentor won the first round. And so they asked me back as a judge last spring, which was really fun to do. So,
Oh, that's awesome.
yeah, if people have a chance, you should check it out because it's a really
Yeah.
fun
I'm
event.
gonna, can you repeat that?
Yeah, it's called Inanimate, like an inanimate object, Inanimate Dance.
Dot com, dot org,
.com. Yeah.
dot com. That's awesome. I'm going to check that out. And April, I'm so excited to someday meet you.
I know. I
I
really hope
feel
that
like
happens.
I feel like, hopefully, the internet has all of its good and bad, but in all the good, I just hope to meet some other, like, bring our community closer together because, I did meet Waverly, who, are you at that studio normally?
Yeah, Empyrean Arts. I work at Waverly
Okay,
Studio.
yeah.
It's owned by
Because she
Waverly
came
and
in.
Heather.
Yeah, so she came in. Womack and Bowman had invited her in for one of our things, and I think it was Silk's World, something like that. And I was like, man, I don't know any aerialists from your part of the world, your part of the country, and I've never been to the Colorado Festival. I hear so much about it. So, when all this is over, I think we're gonna like a new found appreciation for all this and really trying to, be a community, not just virtually. So
Definitely. Well, I love Los Angeles, and I always say that if I didn't have kids and my family wasn't in the Southeast, I would want to live in Los Angeles or like Southern
yeah, I mean, do
California.
you visit here? You think,
Uh-huh.
have you visited in the past? Okay. Maybe,
Yeah.
maybe you'll come to visit someday in the non-pandemic future, and then
Yeah.
we can play. Thank you for being here, but more so, thank you for sharing your story with all of the listeners. I've already gotten so many people that just, the one thing that somebody said that just made me so happy because that's what I really wanted. She's like, I feel seen and I feel not alone.
Yeah.
And I don't know where that person was in the world, but how awesome, right?
Yeah. that matters.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm going to include all the resources we talked about, plus the link to find the Facebook group on the blurb of the podcast. And yeah, April, thank you. I'm so excited to meet you one day, and great having you.
Thank you so much, Carrie. This has been so fun.
Thank you so much to April Morse Skelton for being with me today. You can always find me at carrie@wrapyourheadaroundsilks.com via email. And thanks for tuning in. This is the Expecting Aerialist podcast.